Welcome to The Dating Lab, the podcast that makes midlife dating simpler, saner, and maybe, hopefully, a little less overwhelming. I'm your host, Alyssa Dineen, and each week we'll break down one real dating challenge that adults 45 plus face today. From confusing apps and unclear profiles to first date nerves and slow fade messages. And you'll walk away with at least one practical tool you can use immediately to date with more confidence, clarity, and momentum. Think of this as your bi-weekly place to experiment, learn something new, and hopefully try something new without the pressure. Welcome back to the Dating Lab. I have here with me today the co-creators of My Next Chapter, Shari Joseph and Tamara Frankfort. And My Next Chapter is a new-ish members-only platform and community to help navigate all stages of separation and divorce. And I am actually one of their dating coaches on there. And so I met them that way, and I'm thrilled to have them here with me today. Thanks for coming.
Well, you're actually the dating coach.
Or the dating. Okay,
Our relationship expert.
Okay, good. Thank you. So thanks so much for being here, you guys. I love what you're doing on My Next Chapter. I think it's so helpful. And I'm sure you hear this all the time from people that have been divorced for a while. It's something that I wish I had access to way back when, 10, 11 years ago. So I feel like it's so needed. So I'm going to jump right in. So I'm going to ask each of you the same question. So Tamara, I'll start with you. So how long have you been separated and divorced? And I want to know, what is something that maybe you wish your younger self had seen as an indicator that your marriage wouldn't be a long-term partnership?
Yeah. So it's funny because when I think about it, I keep saying the same amount of time that I've been separated or divorced and forget to add time on, but it's about five and a half years. We spent a lot of time sort of talking before we announced our separation and divorce. So it all went pretty quickly. We're fairly amicable, which I'm very lucky for. It's interesting when you go back in time and think about your mindset when you get married in your 20s, or for me, it's interesting to think about. I think I wish that as a younger person, I paid more attention to my own instincts and feelings. I felt that I was overriding them a lot, and I knew more deep down than I let myself admit, and certainly that I let myself say out loud. And I just kept kind of rationalizing things that didn't feel right. And so for me, I would say really pay attention to your real emotions and your gut feelings on things. And I have no regrets. I have 3 incredible kids, and life unfolds as it's supposed to. But I think that it's just a lesson for me across the board in life, to follow.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, I'm sure we all feel that way because we have children with our exes, and no regrets. But I think it's just so helpful to keep that in mind, and also to tell others of what to be more aware of when you're going into a marriage or a new relationship. So I think that's so helpful. And even with your situation, you did have a good amicable divorce, and that's just so wonderful to see. And Shari and I had a much different experience.
Yeah.
So even despite that, you still feel like you looked back and saw not red flags maybe, but like instinctual things that you knew weren't quite right.
Yeah, I think things that I knew that if I were to think about my real feeling in it, just we were compatible in a lot of ways. We were really good friends, and we still are. But I think both of us, if we had gone back and thought about how do we truly feel as romantic partners, and is this the right thing, then who knows where we would have landed. So I think there's obviously hindsight different, and you see things more clearly, but certainly the reflection of just being honest with your true self is important.
Yeah. And I feel like that's just a good message for anyone, literally at 20 years old or 75 years old, just more like listening to your gut and your instincts on people.
Yeah, exactly. And I know we're going to spend a lot of time talking about dating now, and that's just so key, especially when you're in this next stage and you know yourself more. Like, it's just such a key message.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Shari, your turn. So how long have you been separated, divorced, and what would you tell your younger self?
Sure. So I've been separated for 2.5 years. Divorced only 6 months. It was it felt forever getting divorced and through that high conflict process, as you know. Even the post-divorce journeys and the relationships and how that shifts is a whole other thing to unpack. It's interesting and to hear Tamara say what she would tell her younger self. I got married in my early 30s. So a little bit later, I felt like I, had a really good core sense of self. And I wasn't a big dater then. And so I do feel like I was a bit pushed towards, hey, give him a chance, give him a chance, give him a chance. And I did. And I'm so glad that I did. Same, no regrets, beautiful kids. But I really wish that I also had paid attention to how I felt consistently. Even my mom reminds me, she's like, you kept making excuses. And she's not, now calling them excuses. But at the time it was like, oh, my ex is British. She's like, oh, he's British. So it's like, that's cultural and that's how he's like. But it was always something. And I felt like I was always defending it. I tried to normalize things that didn't actually feel good because I thought that's what the commitment required. It's like, okay, give it that chance. It's okay. But if something feels off more often than it feels right, that's definitely information. So I think, Tamara, you said not something to override. I like that sentiment.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's actually interesting because you kind of blamed it on cultural things, right? And I mean, there's so many things that I look back and I excused too, especially after we got married. I kept saying like, oh, I think this is just how marriage is. This is just how married life is. Couples fight.
You need to acclimate this, there's that in between jobs, or just like, oh no, I need someone that's ambitious. He wasn't ambitious. Like I need someone like I've just realized so much through the process.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, and I think we're all told like relationships, and we know that now, and at least Alyssa and I were in our current partnerships, of course, there's compromise, right? And you're going to accept the whole person and nothing is going to be exactly as you want. So you kind of go in with that mindset and then it's easy to start excusing and rationalizing. But if you dig into how you feel at the core and also the patterns, some of those things are easier to sort of see.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I was just talking to one of my daughters about it with, someone she's dating and and it's kind of like everything's great except for one thing. And I'm like, maybe that's not going to be a something you're willing to give on, but nothing's going to be perfect, so just kind of what you're willing to have a little bit of more give and take on, or what you're willing to kind of put up with, or there's certain things that seem important at one point, but then later you're like you said, it's like your core feeling is really the important thing. But yeah, I mean, I feel like any relationship is navigating the things that you're willing to give a little on. And sometimes it's like, I mean, when I look onto my relationship now and I think, there's definitely times when maybe, things aren't perfect, but overall, I can't see myself not in this relationship. So I think it's just important to keep remembering those things. Yeah. And actually, just to give a little background, Tamara is newly engaged to her now current partner. And congratulations again. So yeah, so we're kind of all at different places. But so Tamara, on that note, when did you know when you were ready to date again? What were the signals?
Yeah, it's so funny because I was thinking about that. Honestly, I don't think I was actually ready to date and I jumped in anyway. I like went on the apps. This is sort of embarrassing, but I went on the apps like almost immediately because I was like, I had this sort of underlying feeling of like, not like, it wasn't like a race exactly, but like I should be moving forward and finding that next person. Like that was my next chapter that was key to it. And that phase, like I jumped in even before I started to figure out other aspects of my life, like who I wanted to be as a single person or how to even navigate some of my finances and things that I'd never done on my own. I like literally put dating as a priority. And that phase was really unsatisfying for me. It felt like I was just dating to date, like checking a box, almost like what I had done in my late 20s. And the real shift came for me like when I took a step back and I paused and like focused on myself and built like deeper friendships, and especially with women that I still have today, and started doing things that actually interested me and like things I hadn't done in a long time. And then when I really took time for that. And then when I went back to dating, it felt like completely different and much more intentional and less urgent. And so, yeah, so I think in retrospect, I would say I just didn't realize that how important it was for me to really focus on myself and find myself before even thinking about someone else. And then when I did find myself and felt happy and in a rhythm, it was like, okay, then if I meet someone, it'll just be the icing. It didn't become as urgent and important. And that like allowed me to then take my time with it and approach it in a more careful way.
Right, right. Yeah, that's great. And Shari, how about you? I know you don't feel ready yet.
I
So how do
don't.
you kind of know like what will be your signs that you might be ready, or do you feel like you just can't even picture that?
No, I mean, there's definitely been signs that like I want to dabble, like, even from the beginning. It's still like, I loved feeling loved and I loved what relationship there was good in my relationship, through the 10 years that we were married and the way he made me feel positively.
Yeah.
Often enough to like hold on to those and know that that's something I would love to, feel again. I think the reason that I'm not ready yet, maybe it's also I have single friends that are like been chasing the dating in the dating sphere for a while now and getting really frustrated. But I'm like the biggest introverted extrovert. So I just like the divorce took the life out of me. My next chapter was such a savior, building it while actually going through it. With Tamara being a few years out, like it was really helpful just to think about the tools and using these tools. And I realized that I like need to be alone right now because I do crave that alone time. Like there's that peace because he disrupted my life so much that I need that peace, that I want somebody that's going to be additive to my life, that's not going to add more complexities, and it just needs to be easy. I don't want to have to, look at my calendar and like, oh, I have to go out tonight. Like I do sometimes when I even have a dinner and I'm like, I just want to stay home. So I really have to feel like I like want to make the time because it does take time and effort to date. And I would say the other like side of it is I became unhealthy through the divorce process. I gained weight. I just felt like what stress was doing to me, that I don't feel the most comfortable in my own skin now. And so I think about, okay, relationship and closeness. I'm like, I don't want someone touching me right now. So I do want to get comfortable with that self. But then, someone introduced me to someone or someone, came across and, maybe it can get me out of my own head on that comfort level.
Yeah, yeah. I think that could be a big clue too, that it doesn't even sound exciting to get out and do something that doesn't even sound fun to you going out. And I think
But then I have these dreams. So I'm like, okay, maybe like, yeah, there's the desires there.
okay,
So
well, actually,
You're getting closer, Shari.
I know. I was just gonna say, because I feel like when I met you, whatever it was a year ago, you were like, hell no.
Yeah.
So I thought you were still there, actually. So to me, I'm surprised to hear you saying that you're like, maybe there's an inkling there,
yeah, like every once in a while, I'm like, somebody's talking about Facebook dating. But then I'm like, the universe keeps giving me signs. Like for the life of me, Facebook dating does not show up on my profile. Like I can troubleshoot, I can do everything it does. I'm like, okay.
That's really funny.
It's just,
Yeah, that's really funny.
What is Facebook dating? I haven't even heard of it.
Oh, it like matches you based on like it doesn't show you anybody that you're friends with, but based on your friends and friends of friends is who
like
it like
connection,
surfaces to you.
like you have like a connection, whether it's like once removed or twice removed, right? Then they show you those people. Is that right? Or
So
you
I think I'm not, it's not surfacing for me, but these are my friends say, and
well,
that's been
so they like Facebook dating. I'm curious because that's something that comes
not
up.
necessarily. Someone met
Okay.
someone on it. Someone else just like it was an easy like, oh, okay, I'm cruising on Facebook and like I could, look through a few people without like making much more of an effort because your profile is already there. You have some pictures, like it gives you just enough information. It's a little bit lazy, like to, you can just like ease into it. But, mixed, I think it's met with a bit mixed reviews.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, like, from what I've heard from my clients, I haven't heard a lot of positive feedback on it, but I feel like is so much potential for it. I wish that I could like get my hands in there because I feel like the idea that you could meet someone that you're connected to in some way,
Yeah.
I feel like would ease so many people's
Safety
minds.
concern.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and not even just safety, but even just like kind of knowing that there's some kind of accountability there, like if they know someone you know. Do you know what? I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, I
Yeah.
feel like it
Yeah.
seems
Well, it's
really
like it could be, well, that's like when you're there's people have more comfort going into like a setup than a blind date.
yes,
There's
yeah,
like
yeah.
some commonality.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, interesting. So that would be the app you'd probably try if you did it.
If it would let me in,
Okay. All right, you'll have
maybe.
to keep me posted on that. Okay, so here's another question I want to ask you guys based on, doing my next chapter and kind of getting to know your community. How do you
Mhm.
help people in your community or clients distinguish between loneliness and genuine readiness for dating?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I just described kind of speaks to this. Like, I really lived this pretty clearly, where loneliness was like initially like the loneliness that I felt, and even at the end of my marriage was so extreme that it was like that really early phase for me. And so that's what drove me to be like, okay, what's next? Who's next? Like, how do I surround myself? And for me, like, once I got comfortable sort of in my aloneness and like finding my own rhythm, just being my own single person, that readiness came. So readiness came later when I actually like knew myself and I had routines and friendships and things that grounded me. And dating became something that I was not like open to, and that would be to as Sherry said earlier, like additive versus something I needed. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would say to like what we say to our members is it makes sense that you feel alone. Like it's scary, and divorce can be really lonely and isolating. And I
Yeah.
think that it's okay to acknowledge that, voice that feeling, and sit with it and think about, okay, well, yes, I feel lonely, and this is going to give me time to do X, Y, and Z that I never did. And slowly you start to get used to it, and that feeling doesn't, it's new and different, but I mean, I don't know. I've heard from a lot of people. I know for me myself, I wound up enjoying it in a way I didn't expect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think of
Yeah.
alone and loneliness, yeah, definitely different because I was saying
Yeah.
like I like to be alone and I feel like loneliness is like I don't want to feel this way. Like this just feels icky. And
Mm-hmm.
readiness is more like I like my life and I now I'm open to sharing it. And
Yes.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely like
I
a
feel like,
progression of steps. And I feel like if you're dating to escape your life, which is what, some people are like, oh, I just need to move on to the next person and like shift my focus. Like you're likely to recreate that past. But if you are dating to then add to
yeah.
your life, I think you'll end up choosing differently or like watching what, we would say to your older
Yeah.
self, your younger self. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's not versus settling, which I think a lot of
mhm.
go through.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that's a good way to kind of measure it with yourself is like, am I dating because this feels yucky being alone? Or am I dating because I'm like, oh, I want to meet someone new to,
Yeah.
to share
Yeah,
my
have a
life with.
companion and do some things
Yeah.
with.
And
Yeah.
literally for me, I had those two distinct phases. So I know how much harder it is to
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. Same, same.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
definitely had that. I mean, in the beginning, I was definitely dating to escape my terrible divorce and like kind of what it was definitely an escape. Like it was someone who didn't know me, didn't know what was going on. And I could just kind of pretend that it wasn't happening
Yeah.
in the
And I think that's
background.
okay too, right?
Yeah,
Like I think it's
no,
okay to do that and to have an escape and find a way, if dating is
totally.
that escape, like go do it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, the way I look back on it, I'm like, I feel like it really did honestly help me kind of get through all of that. It was pretty ugly, and I just feel like it was just a way I had to, yeah, just to not think about all my problems. And
And you also, I know in the past, Alyssa, you've talked about how like by talking about yourself on those dates, then you're like, wait, this is who I am. And now I'm like,
yeah,
you like learned a lot about yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I
funny
have
that you remember
hobbies.
that.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
remember you saying
I
that. I
have
was like, I
interests, and
mentioned that to someone else who's like been on a lot of dates. And I was like, you know what? There's silver linings there too, I think.
yeah, yeah. I think I don't know. For me, I really truly got to know myself that way again.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you guys think about? I mean, I don't know how much you hear about this in your community, but I feel like I hear a lot about this in the dating space, especially on social media, about this wave of single women, either who have not never been married or divorced and kind of and they're choosing to be single like proactively, not wanting to date and not wanting to have anything to do with men, basically. I mean, you even hear like the funny things about like if I could choose, I wish I was a lesbian kind of thing.
I may have said that.
Yeah, exactly. I did that too. So, anyway, what do you guys think of that? And do you guys talk about that do you have like talk of that in your community? And what do you guys think about all that?
I mean, I hear it all the time also. We hear it all the time on My Next Chapter, and a lot of our members are actually very early and even preparing to decide, or in the navigating and aren't thinking about dating necessarily yet. And what we really encourage is for people to do work on themselves and think about their priorities and their own identity. And I think when there's definitely a wave in discussion, like I think there's the societal ideal of marriage, and there's now all that existed for so long, and now obviously there's divorce and there was stigma around it, which I think is waning a bit, and there's more acceptance on different lifestyle choices, different forms of family. And I think for women, like, and in particular, there was a lot more opportunity and to think differently in terms of how you approach life. And when you've done the work and built a life that you genuinely like, it takes a lot more for someone to then come in and add to it. And it's not necessarily avoidance. It's just you've made a conscious choice.
Yeah.
So I think it's great for people to the extent that they're really happy and that's what they want. There are situations, and there's one friend I have in particular I'm thinking about, where they say it because they don't want to take the risk of trying to find someone. And I think that maybe denying with themselves what they actually want. So I think in those situations, like, it might be worth still being satisfied and happy with yourself, but maybe dabbling a little bit just to see and being honest with yourself.
Yeah, yeah, because I feel like a lot of people maybe use the like I'm still healing as a way to avoid being vulnerable, which I totally get. I mean, 1,000%. And maybe you genuinely are still healing, of course, but I feel like I hear that in some people that have like approached me to maybe work with me, but they're still like not sure. And,
Yeah.
I feel like, and tell me what you guys think about this actually, and Sherry, you in particular, because you're newer or newly divorced. I feel like I don't think it's necessarily true that you have to be like fully healed to start dating. Because I feel like that's maybe part of the process. Going back to what we just talked about with my situation, I feel like that was also part of how I did heal is getting to know myself, getting to know what I wanted in another partner, getting to know what I definitely didn't want in another partner. And I don't know, for me, it was like part of the healing process. And I've heard that from other like therapists and, psychiatrists, psychologists. So what do you guys think about that? Like, do you feel, I genuinely feel like it can be healing to date people.
Well, because I haven't actually dated now, yet, it's hard to answer like from my own experience. But I do feel like, especially in the higher conflict, like I don't know if I'll ever fully heal. So if I waited till like that was going to happen, like, I may never, but it is like, there is like this growth and it's evolving, and like, who am I now and how am I tolerating, and what is my relationship like with my ex, and how am I working on that relationship? And I'm going to constantly be working on that relationship because it's my kid's dad and I have to. And so like, I'm kind of compartmentalizing, like not having him taint my relationship life at large. And, so like, I feel like I'm always going to be healing from that, but I do think there's the healing of how it made me feel. And I'm, what excites me about potentially dating is that like someone making me like feel comfortable in my own skin again, like to help me with that. Right. Like, I'm waiting till I'm like the perfect weight, or like, I'm like this. And I want finding someone I think that will be like, you look beautiful. Like, I love how you are. And that it would definitely help with the healing process.
Well, and I think, just to Sherry, what you're saying, like in terms of growth as an individual, I think there's also growing in a relationship. So like part of the healing post-separation and divorce, to the extent that you want to be in one again, is being vulnerable and allowing yourself to sort of go back into something to then decide, okay, who do I want to be and how do I want to be in a relationship? And unless you like actually take that leap and try it, you can't then grow in that area and find yourself there too.
Yeah, I
Right.
totally. And like when I think about like what I'm hearing from my friends and from our members and myself, and it's like choosing peace over the potential is that like powerful shift that's happening. And the goal isn't to stay single forever. It is not to settle. And so like that's,
Yes.
the shift in the bar. And
Yeah.
so I think that's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and actually, I don't know if you guys have heard that or seen that clip of Drew Barrymore talking about, because she talks a lot about being single and loving
Mhm.
being single, but also dating and trying to find like, the love of her life. But she said something like basically, even though she's like acknowledging that she loves being single and she's like in a committed relationship with herself, she's always still looking for love. And she said like both of those feelings can coexist. And
Yes.
she feels like, and of course, this is like maybe, controversial, but she said, like, I feel like anyone who says, like, I love being single is still kind of always looking. And I don't know
Yeah.
if that's true. I'm not sure if I agree, but yeah, I feel like that's really
Yeah,
interesting.
it is. And I think that goes to the discussion we just had earlier where people are making conscious choices to live to be alone. And I do think there are some people that genuinely want that.
Yeah.
But then there are people that kind of hide behind that too. So I think it's a
Yeah.
constant.
Yeah. I
Right.
think
That's how I
it's,
was like, do they really want it or are they hiding behind it? I don't
I,
know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know. And of course, you can't really know. I mean, I've worked with clients where you feel like you know them but you still are not sure. Like, do they just not want to be vulnerable or do they really
Yeah.
just not want to date and they just feel like they're not ready?
And what you said about Drew, and I do love like listening to her, but what you said about the two emotions, we do talk about that a lot on my next chapter. And we have a lot of great resources about that from our mental health expert and that those two emotions coexisting and realizing that and getting comfortable with that is part of the healing process and is part of growing. And, I remember being just so like distraught and emotional like going through, but then also just so excited about my next chapter and like that was okay, or just like how the relationship with my kids was evolving in a positive way. And
Hmm.
even though I was like, was I sad for my kids in some ways? Like, yeah, I was too, but like that's okay. And I think really I love that.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, actually, on that note, I feel like my relationship is, I mean, it's hard to know because I haven't now been married to their dad in so long, but I feel like my relationship with them is just, I can't imagine it being any stronger. Like especially if we were together, I feel like I would have been sort of, in the shadows because his personality was so much more dominating. So I feel like, to me, I just feel like my relationship with them is so strong, and I don't think it would have been that way if we were still together. I really don't. Do you guys ever think about that?
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and it's I think, and it's different for me for my three kids and their ages, but I've
Right.
definitely had to like flex in areas that I typically wouldn't have and sort of I show up as like a whole parent in a way that I didn't when I have them.
Yeah.
But, then there are, of course, also sacrifices. And just as the discussion on emotions, there's two sides to everything. For me, I don't have my kids half the time, so that's hard. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Same. That was the
yeah,
same for me too.
And that was
Yeah.
the hardest emotion to like cope with, like knowing that, like the anticipation of that you're not going to have your kids all the time and seeing every one of those moments. But then I realized I'm so much more present the time that I am with them that I do feel that richness. And then I have the time to recharge when they're not, which could
Yes.
give me
yeah.
more time to
And the
date.
Yeah.
time to date, Sherry.
I know, I
Exactly.
know. No,
Yeah.
I really came in the beginning. I don't know how you guys felt, but I was devastated on the days that I didn't have my kids. Like I was like, it was really hard for me. I was really, really challenged by that. But after like, I would say like, I don't know, it felt like forever. It was probably 6 to 8 months of that. I really did see it, Sherry, like you just said, I felt like I really did have a chance to recharge. Like I would come home from work and like take a nap, like,
Yeah.
at
We're like,
6
what's a
p.m.
nap? This is
Yeah.
great.
And like on a Saturday morning, I'd sleep in and like all the things that like I would putter around and like just take so much time for myself that I hadn't had. And, when you have little kids, you just don't have any time to yourself. So I really saw it as a time to like really recharge. Exactly. And then when they were with me, I was like full on, and
Yeah.
that felt really
Yeah.
good. It felt so good to be like that because I felt like when I was married still in that, really abusive marriage, like it was so easy to just kind of like retract into myself and I was just so exhausted too that I feel like I was never fully present when I was with my
Yeah.
family. I was not fully there. So
Yeah.
that felt really good.
Yeah.
Tamara, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think like I have my kids, we're on a 2-2-5 schedule. So initially, like after that 5-day stretch where I had them, I'd be like, it took everything to lean in and parent all three of them over the course of that 5 days, and I was exhausted. But
Hmm.
then, but then still really sad when they left and felt guilt and that nostalgia. And so I hear I'm like exhausted and having hard feelings, but with time, just like with you, I wound up like kind of, still that sort of the harder feelings dissipated a bit. And I was able to like let myself rest and do the things that I needed to do and started to look forward to it a little bit, having a break.
Yeah, yeah,
And
for
yeah,
sure. And like you said earlier, like and really focusing on my friendships
yeah,
and being able to spend real time with girlfriends and
yeah,
that was really
yeah.
nice too. Yeah. Sherry, what's your custody schedule?
223. So we still have more switches because of the high conflict, which is good. But lately, I have more than 50% custody. So it's been an interesting to navigate
Oh,
that
okay.
and the shift.
Yeah, yeah,
Sometimes, sometimes not. I would love to just like have some more stability in that area so that I could get the support and, then still be like intentionally present. But
right,
being
right.
careful not to spread myself too thin when, that happens
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
because it'll
for
shift
sure.
back to the like, okay, wait, I'm not as present because I'm trying to do too many things at once.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, so let's do a quick lightning round before we wrap up, if you guys are okay with
Yeah.
that. Okay,
Yeah.
so what's one word you'd use to describe healthy love? Tamara, you go first.
Connection.
Hmm.
Steady.
What's one dating rule people should break after divorce?
Mhm.
I would say that there is a timeline or that you have to be like ready in a perfect way. Clearly I wasn't, and that was just part of the process.
Hmm.
Yeah, similar. I would say that you have to feel 100% ready because you won't.
Yeah. Okay, what's something about divorce that benefits people, but no one really talks about that?
I'm not sure if no one talks about it. People are talking about it a little bit more, but I would say clarity and a second chance when at yourself, kind of when you are older and know yourself better.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Sherry, what about you?
Yeah, you stop negotiating with things that don't feel right. So, yeah, it is that like mental clarity.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and if you could remove one piece of dating advice from the internet,
Mhm.
what would it be?
I would say like know exactly what you want before you start dating. Because unless you date,
Yeah.
then you're not going to be able to know that or learn that.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. And Sherry, I know you're not dating yet, but what would you,
So,
after working with my next chapter community, what would you say?
well, I guess, yeah, that like to get back out there because it puts the pressure on the timing instead of the intention.
Yeah, that's a good one. Great. Well, thanks, you guys.
Thank you. It
I'm
was
so
so
happy to have you
fun.
guys on here. And how can people find my next chapter? Tell everyone.
Go to mynextchapter.com and you
You
could
can join,
join for
we have
free.
a, yeah, join for free and you can access almost everything on our site. No strings. It's all confidential, private. So there's, even if you're just thinking about your marriage and whether or not this is right, it's a great first step.
Yeah, that's great. And you guys are on Instagram too.
We
My
are
Yeah.
next chapter, right?
My
Yeah.
Next Chapter official.
Okay. Great.
Or no,
Thanks
just My
again, you
Next
guys.
Chapter.
Okay. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Alyssa.
Alyssa.
Thanks for listening to the Dating Lab. If today's episode gave you something to think about, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. And if you want more dating guidance, you can find me on Instagram or at stylemyprofile.nyc.com. Until next time, remember, dating is a process, not a verdict. You're doing better than you think.